So the governor's recommended budget has an additional $1.75 billion coming to ODOT.
Right.
How important is this funding for your agency?
This funding is absolutely vital. As you look to the impacts that we've seen in the transportation sector, and I want to be really clear, it's not just ODOT. We're talking about local jurisdictions, we're talking about transit providers, we're talking about transportation as we know it in Oregon and across the country. We're seeing difficulties in the ability for our operations and maintenance crews to continue to be funded at a level that they need to be. The governor recognized that, also give a nod to presiding officers, sending us a notice and a letter saying we need to fund the system and we need to make sure that we're taking care of the basic needs for Oregonians. So it's absolutely vital. And as you look to the last several biennia, we've had to cut service and we've had to cut some of our budget in order to stay within our means. And so as we look to where we are now, quite honestly, we've been doing this for several biennia, really cutting down, and the service is becoming noticeable as of right now.
Why are transportation agencies seeing this pinch right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. Every transportation agency is funded a little bit differently across the country, whether that's a state DOT or a city or what have you. As you look at what are the synergies or the things that are actually alike in most of them, what we're seeing is that inflationary impacts are impacting us. We're seeing that just the revenues are potentially flattening or declining depending upon the revenue source. And as you look to maybe how we're funded, it's a structural deficit. It's not just a deficit of not enough money. It is structurally, we're looking at revenue sources, or we have current revenue sources that we see a future where they won't be able to sustain our needs. And so that is all impacting us at the same time.
The legislature is looking at a range of solutions, raising the gas tax, raising vehicle fees, even adding things like a delivery tax, things like that. What position is ODOT taking on these specific revenue options for the legislature?
Yeah, I would say that we don't have a specific position on specific revenue options, but I would say this. Generally speaking, we are looking for and we are hoping for revenue solutions that have a sustainable life, have a future, have reliability built into them so that we don't come back every couple of years to have this same conversation. And then also that keep pace with inflation. And so I think that's probably the most specific I could be is our hope is that we look at ways to index whatever is brought forward to inflationary impacts because frankly inflation has been one of the biggest impacts to our budget over the last couple of biennia.
The Democratic leadership on the Joint Transportation Committee, they seem very open to raising these taxes and fees. Their Republican counterparts say, let's not start there. Let's look at ODOT's budget and go through it and see where they're spending money and see if there are opportunities to tighten the belt and be more efficient with the money they're getting. Are you committed to having those conversations with the Republicans who are saying, let's look at taxes second and spending first?
Yeah, I would offer a response in two ways. One is what we have been doing, and then the other is a resounding yes. We are happy to look within the things that we are performing right now, trying to find ways that we can be more efficient and open to suggestions to be more efficient. Frankly, that's our job. As we think about what we are here for, we are here to serve Oregonians, and that's all Oregonians regardless of where they come from and regardless of their needs. And so as you think about our willingness to really have that dialogue, absolutely. Not only are we open, but we look forward to it. And in fact, we actually anticipated that as part of the dialogue over the last three biennia. So we've been noticing that we have a budget crisis coming, even as far back as 2019, 2021, that biennium. And it was in that time that we really started scaling back some of the service. Now, admittedly, less noticeable at that time, right? Moving more service to online to the extent we could. Low volume roads didn't get as much of our attention as we would like, those kinds of things. But as we progressed through the multiple biennia, again, since that 2019 timeframe, what we've seen is we've now reached a point to where anything that we do to reduce our level of service is actually going to be seen and felt by Oregonians. And that's why we've been beating that drum for the last several years, really trying to raise awareness that this is not something that's happening overnight, but it is something that's real and it's right around the corner.
To that point, do you see any other areas within ODOT where you can trim?
I'm open to the conversation. I mean, as I look to what we're doing right now, we're running very lean. We're holding vacancies open and we're not able to get to certain things that we would like to get to, whether that's some of the striping and some of the other things. That said, I am extremely thankful for the legislatures and the governor's leadership in the last legislative session to bring forward $39 million to help us address some of those deficit areas because we're putting those to good use that gets us through this current biennium, or we would be having service cut conversations in a very different way already this biennium.
The Democratic leadership on this Joint Transportation Committee, they say Their priority right now is no new projects. They want to finish the projects from 2017 and allow ODOT to focus on maintenance and operations.
Sure.
Why have those anchor projects from 2017 not been finished yet?
Yeah, I'd probably take a moment to reflect on all of the projects in House Bill 2017. So as an agent that is responsible for delivering on those things that are in the law, our responsibility was to deliver on every named project, and there was about 40 of them, and in fact I think 27 of them were ours, or 23, somewhere in that ballpark. And then some went to local jurisdictions. So for the ones that were really under our leadership to deliver, they ran the gamut. Some of them were really adequately addressed as far as scope and schedule and budget right from the get-go. Some of them weren't defined enough at the very beginning, and so we've been working through those as we go. And then, of course, the larger projects that you made reference to, those weren't fully developed in all of their scope at that time. Now, that sounds like an excuse. That's not an excuse. That is an indication that as we work on these projects, we have to work with the community. We have to work with local elected officials as well as we work through the process to make sure that we're getting the project out there that everybody wants and can feel proud of. And that's part of what we're doing through that process. Doesn't mean we don't have elements where we wish we'd have done something either differently or better, but it does mean as you look at the scale of all of the projects that we were delivering, we actually delivered most of them pretty well.
Is it doable then for your agency to finish those projects that were given in 2017 and also increase this maintenance and operation if the legislature gives the money?
Yeah, the devil's in the details, but I will say that it's doable because we've been showing a track record of doing that. Now, that said, we can't finish a couple of them without additional revenues because they simply need more revenue in order to finish those projects. And we've identified those for the legislature, and they've correctly asked us, what is the delta on those projects, and how do you then get them to completion?
And I think there's an element in the Democratic leadership and the Republican leadership that agrees on this. But one thing that the Republicans on this committee were saying to me is that perhaps ODOT's mission has just gotten too large, that the state is asking your agency to do too much, and they've taken you away from the core mission of maintaining the roads and bridges. That's the theme they kept coming back to. Do you think there's any truth to that? Do you think there's an element that ODOT should come back to its core focus?
I would offer this, that our job is really to provide the service that Oregonians expect out of us, and they expect that either by way of their own kind of individual expectations at the personal level or what the legislature asks us to do. My job is not really to negotiate whether or not the legislature told us to do something that maybe we wish we didn't have to do or something like that. My job is to continue to advocate for all the things that the legislature's put out before us. So it really is a lot of their decision on our priorities. I will say that it's always a priority for us to deliver on the promises that they've made and that we've made as we go forward. And I do think we have a responsibility to look at how all modes can serve Oregonians, because not every Oregonian gets to where they need to be in the same way.